Remember us?
One more time.
Remember us?
Remember us? We are so sorry that we have completely fallen off the map for the past 2 months. We really intended to make an update video far sooner than now, but time just got away from us, and to be completely honest, too much has been up in the air for us to really even give an update before this point. But it's time to finally fill you in.
We actually just spent the past 2 months back in the US visiting our family and friends, and it was the first time we had been home in 9 months. As I'm sure you can appreciate, we were very busy and just focused on the people we were with. That's really the main reason why you haven't heard from us in a while.
When we first set off on this adventure, we had planned to travel for 2 years. And with all of the curveballs with the pandemic, we were able to extend our travels a bit. And now here we are, nearly 3 years since we quit our jobs and left the US back in 2019.
How did that feel coming out of your mouth saying that our days of full-time
I don't like
travel?
it. I didn't like it at all. But also, Miles doesn't know I've booked a flight and I'm going to Lebanon tomorrow. I tell him something like that at least once a day. There was a long period of denial when we first got home, and quite a bit of bargaining, at least on my part, to try and keep going, because let's be honest, there is still so much to see, so much to do and experience.
It's very true.
But ultimately, it's time for us to shift gears, and as I am sure you can imagine, with a big shift like this, we have been figuring out, well, trying to figure out.
We have nothing figured out.
We're trying to figure out what in the world is next for us, which has been completely terrifying, but also very exciting.
And now our next chapter begins, and we are very excited to share that we have moved to Turkey. We're in Turkey right now.
This may come as a surprise to some of you, but if you happen to watch any of our Turkey videos, you might remember this.
Istanbul is up here on the list of places where we will likely find ourselves living after all this is said and done.
The city is amazing.
We knew pretty early on in our travels that actually living abroad for at least a little while was something we would be very interested in.
And honestly, Turkey just felt so right for us. It's kind of hard to explain, but it wasn't really something that we questioned very much. It was very natural. Like, of course that's what we'll do.
So we booked another one-way flight, and here we are back in Turkey. We just arrived here 4 days ago.
We should add a huge disclaimer here that there is still so much up in the air with this move. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the logistics around applying for a residency permit have been quite a bit more challenging than we were anticipating.
We're headed to an office right after we finish this video to hopefully get some questions answered.
But we are officially in Istanbul. We are in the middle of apartment hunting, and then we plan to file for a 1-year-long residency permit. So needless to say, there's still a lot to figure out, but we are beyond excited to be here. Admittedly, I did have a slight freak out the first night that we got here.
We both did, really.
Yeah, we both did. We got into our Airbnb at 2 a.m. We were awake all night because of jet lag, and we just sat there. We just sat in bed looking at each other, and we were like, what the did we just do? But then we got out and explored the next day, and any of those concerns completely vanished. We were very, very quickly reminded why we fell in love with Istanbul and why we chose to move here.
All that to say, there have obviously been a lot of changes for us. Just the idea of signing a 1-year lease is pretty mind-blowing for us, considering we haven't spent more than a week or two in one place for the last 3 years. And like we've already mentioned, we still have a lot to figure out, like what are we gonna do for a living? You know, that small detail. But we'll make sure to keep you posted. And as far as what's next for our YouTube channel, in the last video you saw from us, we were in Morocco. In reality, that was actually 8 months ago. So we do still have some content from the last 6 months of our travels. But to be honest, since we've really shifted our focus and priorities, we're not really sure if we'll be making any videos from those countries. And if we do, they will probably look pretty different than the style of video we usually make.
I do have a lot, and I mean a lot, of photos from our last 6 months of travel that I intend to post on Facebook and Instagram. So if you don't already follow us, you can do that at Waypoint of View, and that's likely where you'll get the most complete picture of our last 6 months of travel. And then once we're up to speed with all of our old photos, we will start posting about our new life here in Turkey.
Anyway, that's all we have for now, and don't worry, this isn't any kind of formal goodbye. We just have a lot to sort out and how this YouTube channel might fit into that.
So to wrap this up,
Which is impossible.
there is quite literally no conclusion to sum up the last 3 years since we quit our jobs and walked away from the life we knew. Not to mention, if you remember from the beginning of this video, I am very much still in denial. There was a long period of
Denial.
When we were in Brazil, in the last country before we came back to the US, Jess sat me down and rattled off no less than 9 countries she could go to instead of going back home.
I felt like I was being very reasonable, like the negotiation had already
She's like,
happened.
it's only 9 countries.
Like I was being reasonable coming to the table with only 9 countries. I can't believe this part of our journey is over, but honestly, even more than that, I can hardly believe it happened in the first place. Even now, sitting here 2 months later looking back, I mean, this truly has been the most incredible adventure, and just know how much we appreciate you following along and all of your support and your encouragement along the way.
And like I said, this is not a formal goodbye. We just have to figure out what's next for us. Obviously, $100 a month from YouTube is not how we are going to sustain our lifestyle. So we're going to figure that out, and maybe YouTube will be a part of that in the future.
TBD.
We'll keep you posted.
Just like everything else in our life. Where we're gonna live, how long, what we're gonna do. The only thing I know is that it's lunchtime
And
and
we're in Istanbul, so there's plenty of food to be had.
we've been eating so much. We've only had 6 pieces of baklava since we've been here, and that's because we cut ourselves off after day 2. We hungry, it's time to eat. I have 5 options to give to Miles, and then we're going to look at an apartment with the most horrendous bathroom that's probably gonna be where we end up living for a year.
I told Jess after we saw it, and we were trying to convince ourselves that it would be okay to live in a place with a bathroom like that for a year. We have obviously had bathrooms that are very
Awful
unique over the
bathrooms.
past 3 years. But every time we stay in a place, it's like, we're only going to be here for 3-4 nights, so it's not that big of a
You
deal.
can look past a lot for a few nights.
Now we're trying to sign a lease for a year, so the idea of showering in a half tub, half bathtub shower thing, anyway, it's terrible.
It's not great. Otherwise, the space is really wonderful. I mean, the kitchen, you know, is mediocre, but other than that, other than the bathroom and the kitchen, it's great.
Oh, gotta love it.
All right.
Just another part of the journey.
Okay, bye. Sri Lankan head nod.
Sri Lankan and,
all right.
This means yes in Sri Lanka. At least we took it that way.
Maybe they were telling us no the whole time. It's ultimately time to shift gears. So I'm told.
She's not being held against her will. This is not a ransom video.
You have to do a rewind, and then you, yeah.
And I'm in a denial. That's how she sees it going. She doesn't know how that gets done. That's why we're 8 months behind.
I'm like, Miles, can you do this? You are a magician after all. And he's like,
Don't tell me my business.
and then there it is, and so that's.